If you knew that the decision you're about to make in the next few minutes could literally spell life or death for millions of people, how calm would you really be? In fact, we never even think that our decisions could hold such weight and consequence. Yet, on September 26, 1983, a day as normal or random as any other, Stanislav Petrov was standing face to face with exactly this kind of a decision. As a lieutenant colonel in the Soviet Air Defense Forces, he was stationed outside a secret bunker near Moscow as the duty officer there. Like every other day at what you can imagine a secret military bunker to be like, September 26 had started out cold and boring until a few minutes changed everything. Now this moment was crucial because by 1983, the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union had been stretched over for more than 3 decades. There was no active conflict, but both nations were always prepared. Life was great, economies were booming across the global west, yet all it would take for the world to be annihilated was one wrong decision from either the American or the Soviet leadership, and that decision was launching a nuclear missile. That's why in secret war rooms the public was oblivious to, ears were always perked up, technologies were getting scarily better, and officers were always on their tiptoes because nothing was happening, but even the slightest trigger could start the next world war. That's why on September 26, 1983, even though a lot of us may not know, we had come closer to the decimation of the world than ever before. So the Soviets had an early warning satellite system that they had codenamed Oku, which was stationed in the exact same bunker that Petrov was in. Now the speciality of the system was that it could detect missiles coming from the American territory right when they were launched. Now on this day, shortly after midnight, the alarms began to blare. The computer reported the United States has launched one intercontinental ballistic missile at the USSR. And Petrov looked at it shocked. This couldn't be right, he thought. But before he could even question the system, he saw something flash on the screen that every fiber of his being wanted to deny. The system said 5 ballistic missiles were incoming from the United States. Now this is where Petrov was stuck, because as per Soviet military protocol, he had to immediately report this escalation to his superiors. But he knew fully well how those leadership people thought. And he knew that it could only mean one thing. If he reported that these missiles were incoming, they would immediately launch retaliatory strikes. And a few hours later, Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, Dallas, and God knows how many other American cities would have been reduced to rubble and wiped off the face of the earth, and he would have been the man who was responsible for all those deaths. But if he chose not to report the incident and the alert came out to be true, then Moscow or Kiev or St. Petersburg and so many other beautiful cities in the Soviet Union could have been also reduced to rubble, and he would have been the man who would have been responsible for the death of millions of his fellow citizens. Now he was stuck in this dilemma, and all he had were a few minutes to make the final decision. Even though no one knew Petrov at that time, he had technically become the most powerful man on the planet. Now the question is, if you were in his place, what would you do? I really want you to think about that question for a second. If you were in Petrov's shoes, or more accurately in his bunker, and you knew that your 2-second split decision is literally what the world's fate depended on, how would you do it? Because in moments like this, you cannot grab a pen and paper to do a pros and cons analysis. You cannot have the counsel of vetted experts who know more than you do. You cannot have a consultant you can hire, a friend you can call, or a parent you can turn to for advice. It's all you, and time is slipping out of your hands. If you're like most people, I know you are stuck here. You just cannot make a decision because either way looks like a doomsday scenario to you. If the alert turns out to be true and you do not report it, then people in Russia die, and anyways retaliatory strikes start and the next world war breaks out. But if the alert is not true and you report the incident and then the strikes start, then of course the United States would react, and again it's a doomsday scenario. So if some of you here are confused, you've probably already accepted the guilt that I'm going to be responsible for millions of deaths. But what if I told you it doesn't have to be that hopeless of a situation? What if there is a way out? Because Petrov found it, that's the only reason we're still alive and we have this way of communicating between each other. Now, what was that way and how can you find it in the times in your life when you feel there is no solution to your problems? Now I'm going to share with you exactly how this man saved the world in just 5 minutes, what he did to make a decision. But I want to promise from you, you'll listen to this with an open mind. You'll have an open heart because he didn't find the answer in the usual ways we usually think about when making a decision. He didn't turn to strategy. He didn't turn to books. What he turned was something that we call fake, unreliable, and a lot of times even woo-woo. That stuff is his gut and his intuition. Look, even though he had no evidence whatsoever that the missile threat was false, somehow in his gut, it just didn't feel right to report it to the seniors and to call out for a retaliatory strike. He reasoned, if the United States really wanted an all-out war, why would they send just 5 missiles and not 100? But he knew that no one above would listen to him. No one above would agree to his perspective. They wouldn't even care. Their only mindset was, if a missile comes, you launch 2 back. And he knew that was a recipe for total annihilation. So he took a risk. He talked to his seniors. But you know what he said? He said,
"It's a false positive."
Now did he know that? No. Could he reason that? No. Did he have any proof as to why the threat was a false positive? No. But he just knew. And although every piece of science was against him in that moment, he just knew that the computer was wrong. So he waited it out. In the next few minutes, either he would be the hero who saved the world, or Soviet soil would turn into a zone of a zombie apocalypse. Well, he turned out to be the hero. He was right. The system actually gave a false positive. That was not missiles that they detected. That was some rays of sun that had misfired and the computer calculated it wrong. Now Petrov did not know this beforehand, but his gut already told him, and that made him the hero who saved the day. Although the leadership then kind of punished him for it for not following the orders and demoted his rank, he knew that he's the reason the world was still surviving. And the decision that saved the world, well, it didn't come from strategy, it didn't come from books, it didn't come from the thesis and the papers written on war. It came from within him, from a voice that called out that against every proof of what the world showed him, he believed no, this must be wrong, and he turned out to be right. Now, if something as primal, something as vague as intuition is the reason we are still standing today, don't you think we should give it a chance and we should experience it and should explore the power that it holds? Because if it can save the world, it can definitely save your life. Now here's what frustrates me the most, and honestly the reason I'm making this video, because it's crazy how much we've been programmed to distrust ourselves. Yes, science helps. Yes, data helps. Yes, it's perfectly alright to go out and seek the advice of experts. But if you think about it, your body, mind and soul have survived and evolved over millions of years to make you the magnificent and complicated and complete human being that you are, who fits and works perfectly into this world. Then don't you think it's time we give a chance to that infinite inherent intelligence that is within us and let it lead the way, let it make some of the decisions for us? You can't explain your intuition with data points, but you know for sure when you feel it. But the problem is, you have learned to distrust yourself so much that you no longer feel comfortable in trusting that inner voice. You are so busy asking, what do I need to do? You are so busy wondering, how do I figure this out? What are people saying, that you forget to even ask the question, how do I feel about this and what is my body saying? I mean, it's no wonder we are so technologically advanced, perfect, and logical than ever before. Yet deep down, we are so much more unsatisfied, unfulfilled, and just lost and confused about the way we are living our lives. All our health stats are uploaded to an app with diets planned weeks ahead. In our relationships, we've become experts at following the advice on Instagram and decoding attachment styles like we are some sort of psychological detectives. And all of us are aware of everybody who's screaming at you saying, this is how AI is going to revolutionize your business and your careers. Now, nothing wrong with that. But in that chase, in that logic, in that noise of the world, we've drowned out the voice within. That's why when you go deeper than the surface level with most people, you will be glaring at the emptiness that really exists. I do that every day in my work as a coach. And what really shifts the game for them is not a new matrix or a way of thinking or a psychological theory that I introduce, but the simple act of helping them come back into the present moment and reconnecting with the infinite intelligence that is within them. The moment that happens, tears roll down, panic settles, the race of the mind ends, and clarity emerges. And as a result of that, a burnt out executive who felt that the only way for her to come back to her sanity was to run away and leave everything behind, learned to reconnect with herself, to trust herself again, and to walk into that same workplace with her head held high, dealing with the same pressure, but with a newfound sense of confidence and decision making that she never had before. And for someone else, an exhausting toxic relationship had become the drain of their energy. But when they reconnected with that truth and listened to what their body and mind was really screaming at them, they made the decision to leave, and they found that life was like a rebirth all over again with new colors that they had never seen before. And here's one that I'm really proud of. Someone who had massive panic attacks going into airplanes and flights, so much so that she couldn't even fly for the last 3 years, and then she just texted me over text in 5 minutes as we were talking. I helped her reconnect with that sense of self within again, to feel that yes, she's always taken care of. And that night she messaged me saying, I took the calmest flight of my life ever. There was no panic attack. Now, when I tell these stories, I try to do so with caution because I want you to know the magic is not in me. The magic is in you and the infinite intelligence that exists within all of us, but the one that you refuse to acknowledge. My work is to be exceptional at getting you to get back in touch with it. You are the hero of your story and you can be the Petrov of your life. You don't need to go out and save the world, but if you can just do your life, if you can just rewire the way you are every single day and start going towards your dreams, not because they're logical, but because that's what you want, well then you will be amazed at the magic that you will be able to create. And if anything, let Petrov's story be the example that if you really become aware and if you really listen, even in the moments where data can go wrong and technology can lead you astray, you will know that your intuition and your infinite intelligence, that will never lead you astray. That will always take care of you. It will always guide you, and the right decisions will literally fall into your laps like magic that's happening from every single direction. So learn to listen, learn to be aware, learn to reconnect with your truth. And if you feel called to do this, if you feel that yes, this is what I want to create in my life, that's what I help you do in my one-to-one fast track coaching. The link is in the description. Click there, fill up the form, see if you qualify, and if you're a fit, I would love to work with you and help you create the magical results that I know you deserve. So I hope this helped you. I hope this gave you clarity on exactly what is it that we often miss out on. We have all the data, but this void, no data can fill, only our connection with ourselves can. So go out there and make the magic happen. I'm excited to see how you do it.